Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a look at a document you shared with us, How to Lay Girls Guide by Ross Jeffries et al.
That's the one.
Now this is a very direct, very strategic approach to attracting women.
Extremely direct, yeah.
Our goal in this deep dive isn't really to pass judgment, but more to, get into the core ideas, understand the techniques being laid out.
Unpack them, basically.
Exactly. And see what stands out as maybe surprising or insightful for you, the listener. This is a pretty substantial piece of work, nearly 400 pages.
It is. It covers a lot of ground.
Right. Everything from how you first meet someone all the way through to, well, longer-term interactions, all from a very particular perspective.
And it's worth noting, this guide comes from July of 2000. So it's definitely a snapshot of thinking from that specific time.
Good point. Over 2 decades ago now.
Yeah. And what's interesting, or maybe revealing, is having so many of these ideas compiled in one place, presented so, frankly.
So we're going to navigate this material carefully, focusing on the main concepts and the reasoning behind them, as the guide itself explains them.
That's the plan, just laying out what's in the document.
Okay, let's jump right into the core philosophy, though. From the very beginning, the guide states that the main goal is, and I'm quoting here, to get the girls.
It puts it right out there.
It really does. And it actually puts this ahead of things like, say, money or fame. It's all about cutting to the chase.
Exactly. This immediate focus on that specific outcome, it really shapes everything that follows in the guide.
And it introduces some general rules pretty quickly, presented as essential. There's the 3 seconds rule, looking and feeling your best.
And being the alpha dominant male, that comes up a lot.
The 3 seconds rule remind us that's the idea that once you see someone you're interested in, you've only got that tiny window to approach.
That's the gist, yeah. Basically, no time for second guessing.
Just act.
Right. The guide frames hesitation as a huge obstacle. It argues you need to act fast to seize the opportunity,
Okay. And layered on top of that is this constant emphasis on presentation and projecting this image of, well, control and leadership. The alpha male thing.
Yes, that's a core theme running throughout.
It's interesting how the guide handles looks, too. It says, yeah, they matter, but maybe not as much as you'd think. Not as much as these other factors, like confidence.
It positions confidence and that alpha status as more critical, suggesting they can outweigh conventional attractiveness to some extent.
And then it brings up that familiar idea, the difference between nice guys and jerks.
Right. What the guide suggests there is that men who aren't afraid to show their interest, maybe take the lead, often seem to have more success than guys perceived as too passive or unsure.
It gets into perceived satisfaction, too, saying men have more leverage than they might realize.
Even with women considered very attractive, yeah.
Yeah.
It asserts this kind of upper hand.
And the guide seems to suggest that expressing sexual interest isn't something to be shy about. It's presented almost like a natural part of interacting.
It normalizes it within this framework, yeah. And alongside that, it really questions the value of the traditional dating game.
Sees it as inefficient, maybe, or unnecessary.
Pretty much. There's this definite skepticism towards typical dating norms. It seems to view it as potentially leading to the let's just be friends zone.
Ah, the dreaded LJBF. That's one of the acronyms in here.
Exactly, which the guide clearly wants to help users avoid. It even offers advice for wingmen.
Right, highlighting how important it is to be on the same page if you're approaching women with a friend.
Teamwork, in a sense.
Okay, so with this foundation of confidence and directness, how does the guide advise actually starting an interaction? Confidence keeps coming up.
Confidence is absolutely key in this model. It's presented as the absolute starting point for even attempting an approach.
You can't even begin without it.
According to the guide, no. And it stresses the need to experiment, to put yourself out there, try different things, don't be afraid.
It briefly compares casual meetings versus more intentional pickups, right?
Yeah. Yeah, acknowledging different situations might need slightly different tactics.
And for someone who might be a bit hesitant about that whole 3 seconds rule, jumping right in.
Right. Seems intense.
Yeah. The guide mentions parties as maybe a slightly less intense way to start. Maybe just saying hi.
Exactly. It's presented as a lower pressure alternative for making initial contact in certain social settings.
A softer opening?
Kind of. And then it broadens out to this idea of talking to girls everywhere, not just in bars or clubs.
Oh, right. Like be open to interacting in everyday life.
Exactly. Grocery store, library, wherever.
So if just saying hi doesn't immediately spark a conversation, what techniques does the guide suggest for actually, getting a dialogue going?
It offers a few backup strategies. One is called echoing.
Echoing.
Yeah, it seems like a simplified version of NLP mirroring, basically repeating back some of what the other person says to build rapport.
Okay. And then there's fluff talk.
Right, fluff talk, just talking about general, unimportant stuff.
Yeah.
This is presented as a really crucial skill for building that initial connection.
The art of small talk, essentially. But it also mentions things to avoid in fluff talk. What are the don'ts?
The don'ts are generally about steering clear of negative topics, controversial subjects early on, obviously,
Makes sense.
and anything that might make you seem boring or overly self-absorbed or complaining. The goal is just a light, comfortable vibe.
Got it. Keep it light. Now, moving beyond just words, the guide looks at nonverbal communication. It talks about reading body language as almost like reading minds.
That's a bold claim.
It's a very strong statement, yeah. And it mentions mirroring, subtly copying body language as a Jedi mind trick.
A Jedi mind trick. Okay.
These are presented as really powerful tools for understanding and, well, influencing how an interaction is unfolding. Recognizing signs of openness or disinterest is framed as crucial.
And mirroring is supposed to build that subconscious connection.
That's the idea presented, yeah.
Yeah.
A sense of rapport without them necessarily knowing why. And then there's kinesthetics, or KINO, another acronym, touching.
Right. Keto.
The guide advocates for making touch almost second nature even early on. That seems like it could be, well, sensitive territory.
It certainly can be. The guide frames it as a way to build connection, even suggests women will love it. But obviously, in the real world,
Yeah.
everyone has different comfort levels with touch. Cultural norms play a huge role, so awareness and respect are absolutely key. The guide doesn't always emphasize that nuance as much.
Good point. Okay, so you've made contact, maybe used some fluff talk, maybe some mirroring.
Yeah.
How do you move into actually making them interested? The guide talks about demonstrating value.
Exactly. That's the next stage. Once you're talking, the focus shifts to showing what you offer, your personality, confidence, humor, whatever makes you seem valuable or interesting.
So it's not just about the approach, it's about what you bring to the table once you're there.
Precisely. The guide lists popular places to meet women: bars, clubs, malls, bookstores. And it even suggests that women who seem unapproachable might actually be alone and quite open to talking.
That's an interesting thought. The unapproachable facade might just be a facade.
Or just, they're out alone and wouldn't mind company.
And the guide gives general advice on how to approach. What are the main takeaways there?
It mostly reinforces the core ideas. Be confident, be direct, but not, creepy or overly aggressive. Show you have something interesting about you beyond just wanting to meet them.
And it contrasts average frustrated chumps, AFCs,
Right, the AFC.
with pickup artists, PUAs.
Yep.
The PUA is presented as the effective one.
Yes, the guide uses these labels to distinguish between what it sees as ineffective, passive, unconfident, and effective, proactive, confident, strategic approaches.
And it mentions pace and lead and showing understanding.
Yeah, pace and lead is about understanding the rhythm of the interaction and taking initiative at the right moments. And demonstrating understanding, like through that echoing technique, is about building rapport.
Okay, now we get into some really specific approaches and techniques. Humor seems like a big one.
Huge. The guide lists several reasons why getting a woman to laugh is presented as so important.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, it's seen as a way to ease tension, make her feel more comfortable. Second, it shows confidence you're not taking things too seriously. Third, it's a way to gauge her personality, see if she gets your humor.
Right.
And maybe most importantly, getting a laugh is a positive behavioral response. It's something tangible you can acknowledge and build on.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about asking for a dance. The guide seems to really advise against directly asking. Why is that?
Yeah, it frames directly asking, "Would you like to dance?" as, quote, demeaning and supplicating.
Supplicating. Comes back to that AFC idea again.
Exactly. It goes against the alpha frame.
Ugh.
So instead, it suggests alternatives.
Like what?
Things like having a wingman start dancing with her group. Or if you're already on the dance floor, just moving closer and starting to dance with her.
Or pulling her from the edge of the dance floor.
Yep. Or even acting like you already know her and just confidently taking her hand to dance. Very assertive approaches.
Why? Okay. It even has a strategy if she says she's tired, suggests using that as a chance to move somewhere quieter to talk.
Always looking for the opening, the next step.
And it addresses rejection for a dance, basically. Just move on, don't argue.
Right. No dwelling.
Right?
And there's even a trick mentioned for when a girl is already dancing with someone else. That sounds bold.
It is quite forward, yeah. The trick involves interrupting them, making some kind of playful comment suggesting her current partner isn't great,
Oh.
and then trying to lead her away to dance with you instead. The guide does suggest maybe not doing this to a close friend, which implies some boundaries, but otherwise presents it as an option. Risky, though. Definitely sounds risky. Okay, changing gears slightly, the guide revisits parties. It mentions Don Diebel's advice as an alternative to the intense 3-second rule.
Right. Dibel's advice, as presented, is more about observing the social dynamics first, seeing who seems a bit lost or on their own, and approaching them.
So less guns blazing, more observation.
Exactly. It's contrasted with the guide's main push for that immediate, guns-blazing, 3-second approach. It shows there were maybe slightly different styles even within this community back then.
And if you do get turned down for a dance, the guide offers a specific humorous line.
Yeah, it's a bit self-deprecating. The suggested exchange is, "Hey, baby, want to dance?" She says no. You say, "Oh, come on, lower your standards a little." I did.
Huh. Trying to get a laugh out of the rejection.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. Keep it light.
Then we get into a jokes section. There are quite a few included. Some seem relatively mild, like the doctor's appointment one.
Uh-huh.
But then there's the voodoo dildo joke, which is much more explicit.
That one's definitely pushing boundaries. It even comes with a note saying only use it after you've built good rapport.
And it points out that it uses embedded commands, which ties into NLP.
Exactly. It's presented not just as a joke, but as a technique using suggestive storytelling and NLP principles to introduce sexual themes and potentially create arousal. The shorter jokes also play on double meanings, often sexual ones.
And then there are a couple of anecdotes, like laying off Mr. Smith and the gift.
Right, stories used as examples. Mr. Smith is a simple pun. The gift is more about a misunderstanding, showing how messages can get mixed up.
Okay. Now, what about dealing with resistance? Like, if you get her number, but then dates get canceled or calls aren't returned, the guide has a 3-step process.
Yeah, it offers a strategic approach for trying to re-engage after hitting a snag like that.
What are the steps?
First, try to assess her current state, like her mindset towards you. Second, define the outcome you actually want. And third, use techniques, specifically mentioning presuppositions, to sort of transition her towards that outcome in a fun way.
Using presuppositions. How does that work in the example given?
The example uses language that just assumes a future positive interaction will happen, like saying when we go out, and focusing on the positive feelings, excitement, fun, laughter.
So you embed the assumption in the question.
Pretty much. The idea is to get her to subconsciously consider and maybe look forward to that positive interaction, bypassing the resistance.
Interesting. Okay, moving on to a really important part. Knowing if any of this is actually working. Signs of interest.
Yeah.
The guide gets very detailed
They're
here.
extremely detailed. Lists broken down by eyes, hair, clothing, posture, hands.
Very specific behavioral cues.
Exactly. The aim is to give the reader concrete things to look for, interpreting them as signals that attraction or comfort is increasing.
Like pupils dilating, blinking more, playing with hair.
Adjusting clothes to be more revealing, open leg positions, leaning in,
Yeah.
all listed as potential positive signs.
And there's that table contrasting keep talking body language with move on body language. That seems practical.
Yeah, it's designed as a quick reference. Alertness, open posture, gentle self-touch suggest keep talking. Tension, closed-off posture, fidgeting suggest maybe it's time to move on.
And it mentions that opening up your posture might encourage her to do the same.
That's a suggestion in there, yeah. Reciprocity and body language.
And it lists verbal and behavioral signs, too. Compliments, playful disagreement, asking you to repeat yourself.
Laughing at bad jokes, even.
Right. Those seem like pretty universal signs someone's engaged positively.
They generally are. They suggest she's paying attention and participating in a way that indicates interest or liking. The guide also introduces this concept of a proximity alert system.
What's that?
The idea that women will often subtly position themselves physically closer to someone they're attracted to in a social setting.
Okay, now we get to the phone game. This is pre-smartphones, remember? So it's about actual phone calls. What's the advice?
Key things are, keep calls brief, show you have other stuff going on, don't call every single day.
Create a sense of value for your time.
Yeah.
Scarcity, almost.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. Create desirability. And it suggests if you bump into her unexpectedly, be pleasant, but excuse yourself quickly. Reinforce you're not always available.
And it touches on turning a no into a yes over the phone. With an example line involving immediate keynote, how does that work on a call?
Well, kino usually means touch, but here the example line, "You aren't uptight, are you? Don't you go out to have fun? We're having fun." It's more about playful challenging.
Ah, okay. Not literal touching.
Right. It aims to reframe her refusal playfully and push for a more positive response, followed by more suggestive questions.
Let's talk about closing. Getting contact info or a kiss. The guide distinguishes the close, the kiss from the hashtag close the number.
Yes, and it clearly prioritizes the kiss, the close, as the more immediate goal. Getting the number, the hashtag close, is secondary but still important.
It gives examples of lines for the hashtag close.
Several. And the key theme is making it seem like it was her idea to give you the number rather than you just directly asking for it.
Interesting psychology there, making her feel she's initiating the exchange.
Yeah,
And adding humor, too.
exactly. Humorous framing, positive spin, lines like setting up how enthusiastic she should sound when you call her. It's about setting a positive expectation.
And it even has a line for, while you're exchanging numbers, asking if the relationship will be romantic.
Yeah, is our relationship going to be romantic? Because I like romance. Very direct, trying to frame the future interaction.
It stresses setting a specific time to call, too, right? Not just, I'll call you sometime.
Definite time. And when you do call, suggest casual getting together, not formal dates. Maybe run errands together. Keep it low pressure.
Fit her into your life, not build your life around a date.
That's the framing. It even gives advice for when she says she's in a hurry, time constraints are an illusion. Push to finish getting the number.
Wow. And it includes quotes from Maxim magazine back then about good closing impressions.
Yeah, trying to bring in some female perspective, albeit from a specific source.
And the overall message seems to be, aim for the kiss first. The number follows more naturally after that.
That's presented as the ideal flow, yeah.
Huh.
Physical connection first makes the number exchange more meaningful, supposedly increasing follow-through.
The guide then includes that glossary of abbreviations. Hashtag close, close, threes rule, AFC, PUA, Kino, LJBF.
UG for ugly girl, meaning a less attractive friend, often.
Yeah, it's essential context for the rest of the guide's language.
Definitely need the decoder ring for some of this.
Uh,
Okay, dancing again. Presented as potentially useful initially, but not the main goal.
Right. The main goal is stated as extract her to a private place.
Extractor.
Unless she's a Kino girl, someone described as loving touch dancing is just a means to an end. Build connection, then move somewhere more intimate.
Includes that anecdote equating dancing ability with sexual ability.
Yes, and describes dancing itself as an ancient pre-copulation ritual. Very primal framing.
Now, dates. The guide has a very strong opinion on traditional dates. Extremely strong. It advises against them generally, suggests they should be a special reward only for girls you're already sleeping with.
Wow. And if you do take someone out before sex,
Don't call it a date, and she should pay her way. It even suggests ending dates early, even if they're going well.
why end it early if it's going well?
To show you're not too available, not easy, reinforces that alpha in-control frame. The preference is always for casual getting together.
That's a really unconventional perspective on dating. It's all about maintaining control and not seeming too eager.
Precisely. It flips the script on who is pursuing whom.
There's that example of building rapport online, David and Jenny using poetry.
Yeah, a detailed chat log showing how to build emotional connection and escalate intimacy through shared interests and crafted messages online, leading towards meeting in person.
Then the guide gets into eliciting values, understanding her deeper needs and desires. This feels more psychological.
It is. It stresses intense listening to essentially become the man she wants. It uses this market analogy. Find a product yourself that the market, women, demands.
So understand her deeply, beyond surface stuff, appreciate her uniqueness.
That's the idea presented. Make her feel understood on a deep level. It even suggests digging into childhood dreams, future hope.
To tailor yourself to what she subconsciously desires, that sounds very strategic.
It's presented as highly effective within this framework. The core idea is everyone has unmet needs or desires. Find them and fill that void, either through language patterns or adapting your persona.
3 rules. Everyone has desires. Find out what they are. Fill the void.
That's the summary, yeah.
And the next section, eliciting values, the answers, says do this before talking about yourself, then selectively fabricate aspects of your life to match her values.
Yes. It explicitly suggests tailoring your personality is more effective than just being yourself and hoping she likes it. It advises using her hobbies to understand desired emotional states.
And make her feel those states, not just talk about them.
Right. And demonstrate shared interests through stories. Don't just claim them. It's a very calculated approach to building connection.
There's that brief section on Estonian translation. Seems very specific.
Yeah, just a side note about the author translating patterns for personal use.
Then a reminder, don't forget to make a timely exit. Back to leaving on a high note.
Exactly. Reinforces leaving her wanting more, preventing things from fizzling out. Create intrigue.
And a things not to do list. Don't be needy, don't fake being funny, don't talk about health problems, don't brag too much. Seems like standard social advice.
Generally good advice, yeah. Avoids behaviors signaling insecurity or negativity, which clashes with the confident image.
Okay, now we get into the GM Grandmaster style. This sounds particularly aggressive.
It is. Attributed to someone called Grandmaster Flash, it involves smutty sex jokes, constant humorous sex talk, right from the start.
Constant sex talk, how does that work?
The idea presented is to gauge her reactions, but crucially, diffuse any negativity immediately. Use just kidding or physical touch before she can really object.
And the rationale.
The theory is that by preventing her from voicing negative comments, she subconsciously starts to accept or even get aroused by the underlying sexual content. The guide itself notes this style is potentially dangerous.
I can imagine it has an expansion pack with bad opening lines too.
Yes, examples of lines and jokes designed to be shocking or unexpected, establishing that sexual frame immediately. Very direct, suggestive openings.
Then humorous reframes. Asking a question that twists her potential lack of interest into a dislike of something else, like cute guys, then just kidding.
It's a technique to preempt rejection. Playfully suggest her disinterest is for some other reason, then immediately diffuse it with humor before she can react negatively. The guide suggests she might subconsciously agree with the reframe in that split second.
And the explanation for why GM style might work is its outrageousness bypassing normal rejection filters.
That's the theory proposed. Shock value, unconventionality disrupting social scripts, making standard rejection harder, novelty.
There's an anecdote from someone who tried it and found it surprisingly effective, even if the jokes weren't objectively funny.
Yeah, a personal story suggesting that confidence and directness might be key, regardless of joke quality sometimes.
And it even suggests going beyond GM style by describing a woman as overtly sexual, using terms like slut in a specific context. That seems incredibly risky and offensive.
Extremely. It's presented as a further escalation, aiming to impose a highly sexual perception. The potential for causing serious offense there is massive and needs to be stated.
There's also a GM style on the street scenario, making eye contact, walking past, then calling out about being ogled.
Yeah, using that unexpected, confrontational but playful GM approach in public to try and create a memorable, intriguing first contact.
Don Diebel is quoted again saying women want good sex and romance,
Oh.
emphasizing they are selective and value exciting, imaginative partners. That sounds a bit different from the pure GM style.
It does add a layer, acknowledging desires beyond just the physical, incorporating emotional connection and partner quality, a slightly broader perspective.
Then a very simple strategy. Just say hi, consistently, over time.
Yeah, a low-effort, long-game approach.
Yeah.
Build familiarity, create mystery through repetition without further interaction, hoping she becomes intrigued and approaches you.
A variation is saying hi to any girl you like, anywhere, then maybe using a we already know each other line later.
Right, normalizing the initial contact across many interactions.
More common signs of interest from Maxim, reinforcing earlier points. Compliments, playful disagreement, touching, staying nearby.
Just hammering home those behavioral cues to watch for.
And then palmistry snippets. Unexpected.
Very. Brief interpretations of hand lines, life, head, heart, fate, with a note to reassure someone if they have a short lifeline.
Suggesting palmistry is an icebreaker, maybe.
That seems to be the implication, a novel way to start talking or build intrigue.
Next, how to switch to the right mindset. All about taking action, go get all the girls, not waiting passively. Especially in nightclubs, called death row for passive guys.
Right, reinforcing proactivity, assertiveness, aligning with the core philosophy of taking initiative, being the alpha.
It describes stages of learning NLS, Neuro-Linguistic Seduction, from excited but lost to achieving some repeatable success.
Acknowledging it's a learning curve. Mastering these techniques takes time and practice, and early success might feel random or limited.
Negging, negative hits, is discussed next. Making a woman slightly self-conscious, then relieving it, especially before a kiss attempt with very attractive women.
Yes, negging. It's controversial. Backhanded compliments or slightly negative comments aimed at lowering defenses or challenging self-perception, often targeted at women perceived as highly attractive and used to praise.
Examples are given.
Yeah, ranging from subtle digs to more direct negative remarks, often immediately followed by a positive comment to soften the blow, supposedly.
Networking and pivots. Getting to know her friends and using girls as pivots.
Right. Pivots are friends you go out with specifically to help you attract other women, based on the idea that being seen with women increases your social proof and desirability.
NYC's stance is quoted as very direct. If a woman isn't interested in sex, she becomes a tool, a pivot. Sounds very transactional.
It's presented in a very utilitarian way, yes, leveraging social connections and perceived desirability strategically. If no romantic potential, they serve the function of attracting others.
Then we get examples of specific NLP patterns. The style pattern. Sounds like hypnosis.
It reads like a hypnotic induction, yeah. Focusing on the unconscious mind, manipulating time perception, using specific language structures derived from NLP to influence thoughts and feelings subconsciously.
Pattern 3, sexual innuendo, uses that story about a meat shipment.
Exactly. An example of weaving sexual double meanings into an ordinary story to create suggestive undertones and potential arousal.
The door pattern, aimed at control after sleeping with someone, by linking pleasure loss to you leaving.
Yes, described as a bad boy pattern focused on creating emotional dependency through fear of loss. It's presented as highly manipulative.
And interestingly, Ross Jeffries himself is quoted as denouncing it.
Right. Even within the source material, this one is flagged as problematic, highlighting its ethically dubious nature.
Then several feeling-drawn patterns, using suggestive language, imagery, embedded commands.
All aimed at evoking strong emotional, even physical responses, guiding imagination towards connection and desire for the speaker through vivid, suggestive phrasing.
The I want you pattern, whispering a sexual fantasy in her ear while holding her hands. Very direct.
Extremely intimate and direct, designed to bypass conscious thought, create immediate arousal and connection, advises kissing immediately after. Fast escalation.
Another list of opening lines follows. Humorous, direct, suggestive.
There's a collection offering various approaches to breaking the ice, catering to different styles and levels of assertiveness.
The pivot theory is explained again in more detail by NYC, emphasizing female competition and social proof.
Right. Elaborating on the strategy, the psychological dynamics believed to make pivots effective in attracting other women.
A warm, fuzzy bishop's erotic poem with a warning about timing and receptiveness.
An example of escalating intimacy via writing, but with strong caveats about ensuring the recipient is open to explicit content first.
Resistance-breaking patterns, using time distortion, choice framing, humor, more subtle persuasion.
Yeah, mini patterns aiming to gently guide someone towards saying yes by framing it positively and minimizing objections linguistically.
The guide lists, key personalities mentioned. Maniac High, NYC, Mystery, Nathan Sillard, Ross Jeffries. Gives context to the names dropped.
Provides a sort of who's who for the techniques and ideas being discussed.
A section on top colognes for getting girls. Practical, if subjective.
Shows the level of detail down to sensory elements like scent, considered potentially relevant for attraction. Includes ranked lists and updates.
Ross Jeffries' theory. Show a willingness to walk away. Women feel passion when they might lose you.
Another core principle. Maintain independence. Don't seem overly attached or needy. Creates tension and sustained attraction, according to the theory.
Don Diebel on when should you call a woman after having sex with her. Recommends the next day, out of respect.
Yes. Emphasizes prompt communication and respect after intimacy to manage expectations, unless it's explicitly a one-night stand with no further contact desired.
If she compliments you, the advice is just thank her warmly. Make her feel good for doing it.
Simple, positive reinforcement. Accept graciously. Appreciate the giver. Foster good feelings.
Group tactics. A detailed routine for approaching groups with a wingman. Praising, touching, carrying up, navigating social dynamic.
A step-by-step strategy for engaging multiple people, using the wingman for social proof, and managing the interaction.
Ross Jeffries again. Act like the two of you have something really special going on. Using presuppositions in language.
Subtle psychological influence. Imply a unique connection exists through suggestive language, trying to shape her perception without direct claims she could easily deny.
The we've known forever line. Acting like you know her already. With a non-releasing handshake.
A very bold, direct approach aims for immediate rapport and intrigue by projecting instant familiarity and confidence. Effectiveness might vary based on her personality and perception of you.
Supplication,
Yeah.
as a cautionary example, an overly complimentary opening line that might backfire.
Right. Shows the potential downside of excessive flattery, how it can be seen negatively, especially by those used to it. Contrasts with the preferred assertive style.
More palmistry, reading her love life. Deeper interpretations of hand features related to romance emotions.
Expanding on it as a tool to potentially understand romantic tendencies, create conversation and connection.
Romantic gestures. A
Yeah.
list of classics, picnic, flowers, radio dedication, with a note to sometimes balance the bad boy with sincerity.
Acknowledges the value of traditional romance, offering a counterpoint to the more strategic or aggressive tactics. Suggests balancing personas.
Using palmistry as an actual icebreaker is suggested again.
Just a practical application, glance at a palm or ask to see it to initiate contact.
Finally, use sexual stories to get her horny. Using personal or fantasy stories quoting other women's experiences.
Focuses on narrative and suggestive language to create sexual tension indirectly. Mentions the Discovery Channel pattern, innocent topic, suggestive language.
And acknowledges the difficulty choosing between subtle and overt, advising experimentation.
Right. Finding the balance between innuendo and directness, seeing what works. Also briefly touches on catering to women wanting casual sex versus romance.
Well, that was a truly deep dive into the How to Lay Girls Guide.
Hmm.
We've definitely explored a very direct and strategic approach to attracting women.
Very strategic, yeah.
Emphasizing confidence, understanding desires by eliciting values, using specific techniques like patterns, negging, that controversial GM style.
And navigating social dynamics with wingmen and pivots.
It's clear this guide presents a huge range of tactics. Some subtle psychology, others much more overt, and, yeah, potentially contentious methods.
Absolutely. And considering the sheer volume and variety of advice packed into this one document from back in 2000, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, in a world where strategies like these exist and are discussed, what truly makes a connection feel real and meaningful? Is it about mastering techniques like these?
Or is it something deeper?
Exactly. Or is it about understanding something more fundamental about human interaction, desire, authenticity? Perhaps, exploring your own values and what you genuinely seek in connection. Maybe that's the next interesting step in this whole area for anyone thinking about this stuff.